She needs a fresh start, Emma. You have to understand. My mother's voice crackled through the phone, a mixture of pleading and the familiar guilt-tripping tone I had grown to recognize. I stood in my Manhattan office, staring out at the skyline, while trying to process what she had just told me. Apparently, my parents had given my sister Jessica permission to live in my investment property, rent-free, without even consulting me. And you didn't think to ask me first? I kept my voice steady, though my grip on the phone tightened. It's my property, Mom. I bought it with my own money. Well, yes, she conceded. But Jessica is going through such a difficult time after her divorce. She has nowhere else to go, and you're doing so well with your finance career in New York. You don't even use the property. I closed my eyes, silently counting to 10. At 32, I had worked relentlessly to build my career. As an investment banker, saving every penny to invest in real estate. The Chicago townhouse, now occupied by my sister, was my first major investment, one I had carefully renovated and was preparing to rent at market value. Besides, my mother continued, she's family. Family helps family. The irony of those words wasn't lost on me. Where was this family-first attitude when I was struggling through college, juggling 3 jobs while Jessica partied her way through her trust fund? How long has she been living there? I asked, dreading the answer. Just a few days, my mother replied hesitantly. She moved in last weekend. Your father gave her the spare key we had for emergencies. Of course he did. The emergency key I had trusted them with had now been used to install my unemployed sister in my investment property indefinitely. And when exactly were you planning to tell me? Well, we're telling you now, honey, and Jessica is so happy there. She's already talking about repainting some rooms to brighten up the space. My stomach dropped. She's what? Oh, nothing major, just some accent walls. You know how good she is with interior design. Remember when she wanted to be a decorator? Oh, I remembered. Just like I remembered her photography phase, her yoga instructor phase, and her organic juice bar phase, each an expensive venture funded by our parents that ultimately went nowhere. Mom, she can't just... Emma, please, she interrupted. Can't you just help your sister this once? She's family. I took another deep breath, my mind already formulating a plan. You're right, Mom. She is family. Oh, sweetheart, I knew you'd understand. You've always been the sensible one. I murmured something non-committal while opening my laptop and pulling up my banking records. I have to go now. Client meeting. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair, a small smile playing on my lips. What my family didn't know was that I had been preparing for something like this for months. Ever since Jessica's divorce, I had watched her pattern, land on her feet through family bailouts. I had also seen the way my parents' eyes turned to my success, my stability, my assets. I opened my bottom desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder labeled Chicago Property. Inside were documents I had prepared with my lawyer 6 months ago, just in case. Legal notices, property regulations, and most importantly, paperwork, reflecting the property's new status as part of my corporate holdings. The townhouse wasn't just in my name anymore. It was now owned by my LLC, with strict legal protocols for occupancy and use. Any unauthorized residence could be considered trespassing under corporate property laws. I checked my phone. A text from Jessica. Thanks for letting me crash at your place. You're the best big sis ever. BTW, do you mind if I redo the kitchen? Cabinets? The current ones are so dated. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up my office phone and dialed my lawyer's number. Sarah, it's Emma. Remember that scenario we planned for with the Chicago property? It's happening. Yes, exactly. As we predicted. Can you start the process? I spent the next hour reviewing documents with Sarah, setting everything in motion. The property management company would be notified, formal notices would be prepared, and the corporate oversight protocols would be activated. "What about your parents?" Sarah asked. "They're not going to be happy when they realize what's happening." "They're not going to know until it's too late," I replied. "Besides, they gave up any right to an opinion when they handed out my spare key without permission." My computer pinged, an email from Jessica with attached photos of furniture she planned to buy for her new place, with our parents' credit card, no doubt. "How long do you want to wait before initiating the process?" Sarah asked. I thought about all the times I had watched Jessica take advantage of our parents' generosity, all the times they had expected me to understand, to accommodate, to give in, because family helps family. "Let's give it 6 months," I decided. Long enough for them to think they've gotten away with it. Long enough for Jessica to really settle in. Long enough for everyone to forget whose property it really is. And then, we remind them exactly why you don't take what isn't yours, even if you're family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing your ground and letting others face the consequences of their actions. And as I watched realization dawn on my family's faces, I knew this was just the beginning. The silence that fell over the party was deafening. Jessica's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she picked up the top document from the stack. What is this?" she stammered, her eyes scanning the official letterhead. "This," my lawyer Sarah stepped forward, "is a formal notice of unauthorized occupancy and property violations issued by EJM Holdings, LLC, the legal owner of this property." "EJM Holdings?" My father interrupted, stepping closer. "Emma, what's going on?" I remained composed as the party guests whispered among themselves. "EJM Holdings is my corporate entity, Dad. The property was transferred to it 6 months ago, right? Around the time you gave Jessica my emergency key." My mother paled. "But that's just a technicality, right? This is still your house." "No, Mom. This is corporate property, subject to corporate rules and regulations, rules that have been repeatedly violated over the past 6 months." Jessica's boyfriend, a self-proclaimed real estate investor she met at a yoga retreat, tried to interject. "Hey, come on, this is family stuff. You can't be serious with all this corporate mumbo-jumbo." Sarah pulled out another document. "Actually, we're very serious. We have documented evidence of multiple building code violations, unauthorized structural changes, and most concerningly, illegal subletting through Airbnb." The crowd grew quieter. Jessica's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the epoxy-covered floors she had been so proud of. "Those were just temporary guests," she protested. "Friends staying over." "Friends who paid $200 per night through your Airbnb listing?" I asked quietly, pulling up screenshots on my phone. "The one where you advertise this corporate property as your own?" My father stepped forward, his face reddening. "Now listen here, Emma. Your sister needed help. We were just..." "Just what, Dad? Just giving away property that wasn't yours? Just allowing unauthorized renovations that compromise the building's structural integrity? Just looking the other way while Jessica ran an illegal rental business?" The contractor who had inspected the property earlier stepped forward. "Ma'am, would you like me to detail the code violations we found?" Jessica burst into tears. "This isn't fair. I made this place better. Look at how beautiful everything is now." I looked around at her improvements, the removed load-bearing wall, the amateur electrical work, the tacky epoxy floors. "Better?" I scoffed. "You've created thousands of dollars in damage and violations that need to be corrected." "Thousands?" my mother whispered. Sarah nodded. "The initial estimate for bringing the property back to code is approximately $45,000. And that's before we address the illegal rental income." My father's face darkened. "This is ridiculous. You can't do this to your own sister." "Actually, I can. And I'm not doing anything. These are simply the consequences of her actions, actions you enabled." The property manager stepped forward with more papers. We have documentation of every unauthorized change, every violation, and every illegal rental transaction. We also have evidence of the original fixtures and appliances being sold online. Jessica's tears turned to anger. Those ugly appliances, I replaced them with better ones. Those ugly appliances were commercial grade and worth over $115,000, I replied calmly. Appliances you had no right to sell. My mother grabbed my arm. Emma, please. We can work this out as a family. There's no need for all this legal nonsense. I gently removed her hand. That's where you're wrong, Mom. This stopped being a family matter the moment you and Dad decided to give away property that wasn't yours. The moment Jessica decided to treat my investment as her personal renovation project. Jessica wailed, but I needed a fresh start after the divorce. Your fresh start doesn't entitle you to my property, I cut her off. Your divorce doesn't give you the right to make unauthorized changes, sell things that aren't yours, or run an illegal rental business. The party guests were quietly filing out, leaving behind half-empty glasses and plates of untouched food. Jessica's boyfriend had mysteriously disappeared, along with most of her so-called friends. Sarah cleared her throat. According to our documentation, Miss Jessica Harrison has earned approximately $22,000 through unauthorized short-term rentals of corporate property. This income, along with the proceeds from selling corporate assets, will need to be repaid. Jessica collapsed onto her vintage-inspired sofa. I don't have that kind of money. I spent it on improving this place. Improving? I laughed softly. You mean damaging? Every change you made without permission, every structural alteration, without permits, every violation of building code, it's all documented, and it all has to be fixed. My father tried one last time. Emma, be reasonable. What do you expect your sister to do? Where is she supposed to go? I met his gaze steadily. That's not my problem, Dad. Just like it wasn't your property to give away. Jessica has exactly 30 days to vacate the premises and begin repayment of damages and illegal rental income. 30 days? My mother gasped. But all her things are here. She's built a life here. She built a life on stolen property, Sarah interjected. The 30 days is a courtesy. Given the extent of violations, we could demand immediate evacuation. Jessica jumped up. You can't do this! Mom! Dad! Tell her she can't do this! I watched my parents exchange helpless glances, finally realizing they had no power here. Their casual disregard for my property rights, their entitled assumption that Jessica's needs trumped my ownership, it was all crumbling around them. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Jessica, happy birthday. Consider this your wake-up call. Sometimes the best gifts are the lessons we never wanted to learn. As I walked out of my house, I heard Jessica's sobs, my mother's, pleading, and my father's angry muttering. But for the first time in months, I felt at peace. Sometimes standing your ground means being the bad guy in someone else's story. But I'd rather be the bad guy than the doormat they tried to make me.